Hello all. As I've put out on some videos, here as we complete the Feldy map, I've been wondering which one I could go to next. And so I've been doing some research kind of in what is publicly available, primarily on the mod hoster site. And I know I alluded to maybe wanting to try a larger map, but I wonder if for YouTube purposes a smaller or the standard size map, would just work out better. I think you can get through things a whole lot quicker than with a larger map where there's just a lot more to do or to take care of, larger fields and so forth. But I've been working here on I got an Excel spreadsheet and putting some various things in here. I tried to find all the large featured maps on ModHoster. That is one feature that the site had where users could vote for which ones need to be, quote, featured, I guess the top tier maps. And so I've kind of put a lot of those in here. And for me, it's kind of all about the PDA of the map, kind of how the layout looks, whether or not it's hilly, and as you can see in here, I've put in links so I can go find them again, size, version numbers. Sometimes it's frustrating. A modder will have multiple versions of a map and they will put them in several posts, and versus there's another way to do it, which would be to stack them kind of all in the same post. But anyways, you can go find all those. I like to have the most recent version if I'm able to. So I got links, whether or not they're featured. I put in a link here to PDA maps, whether or not I could find it on YouTube, who the author was, or at least the uploader. And then some various characteristics, that are important to me or that are of interest. I love the hilly maps. I don't particularly care for the flat ones, even if those are, for more efficient farming. Multi-fruit, whether there is a BGA present, non-square fields versus square, rectangular shaped. I just think the maps that have non-square fields are more interesting. Scripts, I think, as everybody knows that has seen my videos, I really enjoy scripts, tinkering with them, making some of my own, and some of these maps have a boatload of scripts, particularly this one here, Big in Paradise, whatever that is, a 4X map. Unfortunately, it's flat as a pancake, but it is good to know sometimes which maps have these, as it can be a resource that can be used on others. I went overboard here. I started looking at all the scripts as to what they are and what they do, but I won't bore anybody with that here. And I also looked at some standard sized maps down here, most of which, or many of which, are featured. Not all the diamonds in the rough ended up getting featured. And I also checked with a Discord group I'm part of, where there is a focus on some of the older versions of the game, asking for a recommendation. So some of these down here kind of come from soliciting that group. And some of them, I gotta say, are getting harder to find. I know it's kind of a broken record, but a lot of times the modder chose to have links, their own links, and the links over time break. And so if they didn't host it proper with ModHoster, a lot of times you look at these maps or other mods and they're simply not available. Be all that as it may, you know, I got all this data in here, and folks, for Farming Sim 11, I mean, on Mod Hoster alone, they boast, gosh, it's like 27 or 2,800 maps, and of course, you know, we just have a fraction of them here. Oh, there's so many maps that could be enjoyed, and so little time, you know, to see them all. But I did want to make a video here, kind of heading off into the next one I'd like to try. And kind of as probably has been seen by the title of the video, I've kind of landed here on, now I gotta make sure I pronounce this right. I think this is a German map, Herlefeld. You know, in the US here, I'd be tempted to pronounce it as Herlefeld, but I think in German it would be Herlefeld or something like that. And maybe if a German person is listening, you can correct me on pronunciation. And you know, I've got the map description here. I've downloaded. I can show maybe I'll just do that real quick to show, and I'll put a link in the description too. Here it is. It's version 2. And I think there was an earlier version. This goes through everything that's needed, of course. So I'll put a link to the map, you know, in the description. And then also just a good old PDA map because like I say, that's important to me to see kind of what it is. And as you see it here, it isn't a full map. Full map, I think, would take up all the space. So the map author chose kind of a smaller area. And it appears, and we'll see this in a moment, there are some additional scripts or mods you can have along with it. I don't think you have to, but if you want some extra map ambiance, and I'm all about trying to get all the parts in place that I can, and I've spent a fair deal of time trying to get this to work on my machine without error. And so one of those happens to be the Autobahn, which appears to come right through the central part of the map, and there's a mod that has, I think, if I understand it correctly, there'll be cars, you know, that go through there and what have you. So standard size map made by, well, I guess it does have some YouTube traffic, not sure what all that was. I looked some things up. Made by Desperados93. You know, I think if I look on, I'm just pulling up here some information on it. I think their actual names are Daniel and Nicholas. And maybe there's, you know, sometimes you can look in the mod description file for the map author. I think Desperados93 is one of them, and SourceWorks is another. You always wonder, how does somebody pick their name that, you know, that they choose for their modding pseudonym, if you will. But that's who made it. It does have some hills, which we'll see in a moment. It has a BGA, and as most will probably remember, for Farming Sim 11, the Giants themselves, the makers of Farming Sim, came out with their own BGA. And I don't know when the Herlefeld app, you know, was published, but there was a clever modder who, before the Giants did what they did, made his own BGA. And so I kind of think this BGA for Herlefeld is on that particular modder scripts. Hetty, I think his name was, probably another German modder. And so that'll be in there. It's otherwise fairly simple. There really is only one embedded script, and you may recall, anybody that mods maps would understand this. Each map is going to have at least one script, you know, the sample mod map, a Lua script, and so that's really all that this one has in it. So those are just some basic details. Maybe I'll minimize that for the moment. Kind of take a look at this here, and I'll open it. Actually, I think I already have it open. Maybe could go there. Just look at my, oh yeah, maybe before I continue, this was recommended to me by, and again, it's part of this Discord group that I am part of that is dedicated to, actually the group I think is dedicated more to Farm Sim 08 and 09, but it's kind of morphing almost into a type of historical society, if you will, looking to preserve mods for the older versions of the game. So primarily Farm Sim 08 and 09, but they have sections for Farm Sim 11, 13, and so on. And so I just asked a question in there, you know, app to consider, and this one here was recommended by someone by the name of Blues, B-L-U-S-E. So I'm going to go on from his recommendation. He said he spent a lot of hours on this map back in the day. So maybe I'll just open it in here. Actually, it's already open. And gonna turn here. You can see, oops, of course, I gotta fix the camera. We're not gonna be able to see it. And while that's coming up, you may notice something here just in the foreground. There's a blimp on this particular map. Here now we can see. That'll expand our camera so we can see. There's kind of the PDA again. We're up sufficiently high. See the old Audubon running through here. The map is really very simple. You know, it has only the standard fruits in it. There aren't any major scripts, except with an exception, which we'll show here in a moment. Kind of over here, it kind of has the look of town, you know, or city off in the distance. You know, if you get down and kind of look at it in the map, you would see kind of over the hills there is town. And really, you know, this is Germany. I kind of think it's central Germany is kind of the area this is intended to represent. There was a name of a town I got, and I'm probably going to butcher the name, so I won't even try it. But I think it's fairly central in Germany, you know, that this region is attempting to be. But it's otherwise structured very simply. What you have is a farming community here. There is well, we'll just kind of take them in turn. You got the major road, but the only sell point, at least that's all I could find, is down on the lower left-hand region of the map. So I think there's, yeah, apologize, it's probably a little bit dark. There's a grate. You can take your crops there. And then over here, probably a feature that gave me a little consternation at first, because I had the wrong mods to get it to go. But this here, by all appearances, looks to be like a lumberyard. Now, there's no logging activity on the map. You know, there's trees galore on here. Actually, you know what? Are these 3D objects? I believe they are. And there also appear to be rigid bodies. So yeah, maybe you could, if you had the correct mods, could introduce some timber cutting in here. But there's no, it's just in appearance only. You know, you got some stacks of lumber, there they sit. There is a bale destroyer right here, kind of a burner unit, maybe for power generation. That's kind of cool that they put that in there. I know that's been a mod many times. But the whole reason I'm pointing this out is if you have the correct mods, and here let me collapse this and go down to, I think it's called Herlefeld BGA. Now when I highlight this, it's going to highlight the lumberyard in here. Oh, sorry, that's the gate. The gate to the BGA. Let me get the next one here. Alright, so this is index 32, and you see that it highlights all the lumber, all the buildings, and everything. And what this script is designed to do, and we will see it in game eventually, is if you have it, if you don't have it, nothing happens. But if you have it, the script is designed to remove everything you see highlighted. It will just delete it, and it will supplant over the top of it a BGA. And Like I say, it took me a little bit of consternation to get it to work. Well, I guess I still don't know that it works, but I think it does. It isn't popping any errors now. But it's just kind of a clever way, because maybe not everybody wants a BGA or what have you, or maybe it was timing differences and when, you know, the BGA scripts were created relative to when the map was made, and the mapper said, hey, I'd like to have that. So some mods were figured out to, you know, kind of replace whatever was in the map. So I thought that was kind of cool. That'll all disappear. We won't have any of this in-game, you know, when we play it. We're going to have a BGA, you know, so there'll be the circular, whatever they're called, where they hold liquid digestate or whatever you call that stuff. There'll be some clamps over here for silage. This will remain. That'll still be there. So otherwise, the road pattern is very simple. There's kind of just crisscross. You got the Autobahn, and you know, you could technically go out on it. I don't know that you'd want to, because it just kind of dead ends on both ends. Although this end has a tunnel, obviously maybe intended to head over the city. So, but I mean, with that mod, it will put traffic on here, and again, if you don't have that mod, I don't think you'll see anything out here. So that'll maybe add some traffic. We see right here appears to be a store, so I assume when we buy stuff, it'll be here. And oh yeah, I kind of skipped over the main farm, or one area of the main farm. And again, this is real simple. There aren't lots of areas, so we're kind of just showing them in turn. The main farm area is here. You have some storage. I think if you drive inside this building, there is, yeah, there's a grate. You have some storage available in here that you can store your crop. There's some buildings to put things in. There also is a manure, liquid manure storage tank here. Kind of out of place a little bit if you ask me, but probably the mod author just intended to have them more centrally located. The actual place where this is filled, you know, of course, happens over here at the dairy, which is kind of down over here, where they have another one that is sitting here. But I believe this is probably the cow pasture, if I had to venture a guess. Although there are bale destroyer triggers kind of under this building. There's a bale destroyer trigger by some troughs down here. And I think there's a bale destroyer trigger in here, maybe even a couple hanging up in the air, you know, where if you want to sell bales, you can do that. So why they have a liquid manure storage container here and over here at the main farm, I'm not 100% sure, but likely just to make it easier for the player if you didn't want to fuss with coming clear over here to the corner. You can just get it on the main farm. So that is the store, and I don't think there's any building areas up here, although we do notice a couple of these fields appear to have been already started. You know, so this appears to be wheat, this is barley, this wheat is started over here. There's also a lot of fields that are just in grass, or I'm sorry, this is pretty dark, you know, without the light in here. Actually, this one was started harvesting too. This is maize or corn. So maybe silage is what's going on there. So kind of like we're being plopped into the map right in the middle of harvest. The only thing is some of them, the fields don't have anything to harvest, but there is a lot to do that is ready to go in here. Like this, I think, is a dirt field. Yeah, that's just plain dirt. So there will be a lot to do, lots to replant once we get going in here, even though it's a smaller map. All right, so we have a little village here, small road network, another road kind of coming off over to the side, and this, of course, dead ends. There's kind of a tunnel into the hill, if you will. And it'll be interesting playing this, by the way. I do know, sometimes when a mapper makes a map, they go clear to the edge. And what makes that a challenge then is you have to have some kind of a map border. And otherwise, the player's going, well, what's beyond? And it's pretty hard to avoid in this case too, but there's a buffer zone here. So what I'm thinking it'll mean is, when you're in a vehicle and looking down on it, my style is typically third person, is you run into, or there's only a certain distance it'll let you do it. And so maybe you won't even notice, you probably still will. Probably be hard to notice it, but a really clever mapper may tighten your viewing area so that all you see is what's in the middle, and you never realize you're just on this tiny world surrounded by water, as a case may be. But I believe down here is the dairy, kind of like we discussed. I think in here is where you give the chaff, maybe not the chaff, yeah, possibly chaff and grass that you put in there. This appears to be the manure pile, even with a helpful conveyor belt. I assume it works, haven't given it a try. They even got a little loading dock here to do it manually. This building here, I don't know that there's anything in particular in it. Let me see if there's a trigger. Yeah, it's just one big building. There isn't even an opening on the other end. A lot of I've noticed a lot of the doors in here don't always open, so but I think they do over here. There's a script that we need to have, a map doors script, I believe, that do open these doors here and here. There's a milk tank. I think the feature said the milk tank works, or rather the milk truck will visit the farm, and that all works. So got some more storage space down here. The dairy itself, or the place to where the milk is taken, is right over here. So, however, the milk truck works, and they don't got very far to go. So, kind of just, like I say, a fairly simple map in terms of, we got a BGA, we haul everything here, everything that gets sold. We have only one choice. Our main farm is here, the store is here, and the dairy area down is right down over here. So, and the rest is out in the farm fields, just like we are all used to. So, it isn't a Feldy, if you will, so it doesn't have a lot of processing scripts and so forth on it. It's just a good old farm map, but hey, it's got a big old blimp up here that I assume runs on a spline, so probably in game, if we ever look up, we should be able to see it flying overhead. Alright, so we kind of looked at the basic areas, talked about the BGA that's going to take this over here, and kind of as I get down here, you can kind of see, the hilliness, so I appreciate that. It's hilly, but it isn't extreme. If you remember the Feldy map that we did, the hilliness on there was really extreme. This looks a little more gentle, maybe more realistic, frankly. So actually we're sitting right here in a grass field. There's a number of grass areas, where we could bale or bring it in some fashion to the cattle or to the BGA. So there's lots of work we're going to need to do. Now, let me see. In terms of any preliminary fixes that I did, the only thing I altered was the viewing distance. Let me get a better area. Everybody sees this circle here. I hate the circle. I don't know that I've met anybody that likes it, and we all want it out there as far as possible. So I set the view distance to 100 meters, and as you can see, it puts it out there, but you still see the silly thing. So the trouble is the further out that you put it, the more resources it draws from your computer. So it isn't. I would love to just put it at 1,000,000 meters if I could, but I don't have a computer strong enough to do that. I think it would crash. I think I was having some trouble with that on Feldy because I bumped it to 120, maybe 150, and periodically it would simply crash. But that is one change I made here. You got to do it in the i3D file. I won't bore anybody showing you how to do that, but that is one change. Another little update I made actually has to do with the main farm and the manure thing here. I happened to notice that the manure plane in here didn't work, but there is a trigger here with which to pick up liquid manure, so it's like, well, why not make it work? So in here it's a silo amount mover script and on create. So I gave it some values. You got to figure out the min, max, y. The y-axis is up, so you got to figure out the positionally, where it is when it's empty, and then where it is, when it's full. Because as you get more, the plane will simply come up until it's full. So I added that in here. And initially I was struggling with the mods. There's a fair number of mods. If we go to this again, this obviously it's labeled as 3, but I think it's version 2 of the mod. So they got some things in here. They mentioned the highway, moving traffic, even an MP. This here, and this is trying to translate from German to English, so it probably doesn't look exactly right. But I think what this is intending to say is, hey, there is a wood or a lumber mill there, but if you have the mod, then you can get by. Okay, yes. So the required mods: map door trigger. There's gates and doors all over the map, so we need that. Map super silo trigger. I'm not 100% sure even what this does, but I almost think it is a type of trigger that if you go to it, you can buy a particular fruit. I could be mistaken on that, but here is the Autobahn and the biogas add-ons, and again, you don't have to have these to run them, but if you do have them, by all means get the correct version. These are the ones I should have clicked on these links earlier to get these. I think I had the wrong ones. I had for version 1, and of course those aren't going to work. Version 1 of the map. I was making them work, but you have to change things, in the Lua file or in the add-on files, to get it to work properly. So my bad on that. So we got those in here. The BGA scripts. I think there are a couple scripts. mapbga.zip, mapbga-silo.zip. So those are, I think they're, when it says scripts, it's 2 of them. It's helpful. I get on my soapbox for this. Lots of modders only want to have control over where mods are hosted, and there's reasons for that we've gotten into before, but it's so helpful. It would be so much more helpful to the player to have all of these scripts with a single download. When you download this, and it's already a file you need to extract, but it'd be so helpful to have everything you need included in the file that you download. But alas, you do have to go to other areas to pick up these. And the trouble is, like I've expressed before, is a lot of these links are dying. And so sometimes, especially if they aren't on mod hoster proper, you may have difficulty finding them. I think most of these are available. So, actually, I got it over here. Let me just drag it on here. These are the specific mods that I have in there, and these are the only ones at the moment. Maybe I'll add some other ones as I get going playing on it, but you need these to run the map. I think these are all the ones that they expect to see. And some, well, you definitely need the map door trigger. You don't have to have the BGA. You don't have to have the way station. The way station appears on the BGA. You don't have to have the Autobahn or biogas, and you probably don't even have to have these two. You know, this adds, I think there's additional textures that appear on the map. You know, we went through that on Feldy, where I discovered Farmer Yip had put additional textures in for when you spread liquid manure or just regular old manure, and the only way to get them to appear was with some additional mods. These are some additional add-ons that will help us to be able to see those in the map, and it will help our cultivators and plows know how to get rid of them. So the non-negotiable ones that you have to have is probably the map door trigger, maybe the super silo, I'm not 100% sure. So anywho, that is that. And so here's where you can get it. And I think we've talked through pretty much everything. Obviously, the next thing that we would do would be to hop into the game. And as everybody heard, I'm out of time at the moment. But that's just kind of a basic introduction to what looks like a decent map. And so I'm going to start a little series on it, and I have no idea how long I'll do it. It kind of like I expressed, it doesn't appear to have as much to do in here as the Feldy map did, and it's a little bit smaller, but I don't know. I'll give it a try, and we'll see where it goes, and see if I can learn a little about Germany in the process. So yeah, it'll be good for a few episodes. Anyhow, next time we'll start this in-game. Thank you all for coming along to take a look at this as we get started, and hope you all are having a wonderful day. I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.